Commissioners, are we good? All right. 4:30, we'll open this meeting of Kerrville Planning and Zoning Commission. Dorothy, will you call roll, please?
Yes, sir. Garrett Harmon,
Here.
Rusty Zuber,
Here.
Trisha Byram,
Here.
David Jones,
Here.
David Lipscomb,
Here.
Cliff Tuttle,
Here.
Hunter Patterson.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dorothy. All right. First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from November 5th. Commissioners, do you notice any corrections or errors, or are we good?
Motion to approve.
Got a motion to approve the minutes from November 5th
I'll second.
and a second. All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. All right, next item on the agenda is item 3A, resolution for a conditional use permit. Drew?
Thank you, Chairman. Board, welcome. It's a conditional use permit for a tattoo shop on Shriner subdivision, block 33, lot 5, city of Kerrville, Texas, more commonly known as 215 Water Street. With that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to the applicant.
First and foremost, thank you for your time and consideration of my proposed studio, Sweet D & Company at 215 Water Street. I actually started my profession in that exact building almost 20 years ago when it was a tattoo studio previously. I've been trying to perfect my place in my industry ever since. My goal is to maintain a private studio at this time, tattooing at a high standard in a safe, clean environment. The Hill Country deserves nothing but the best for its residents. I would also like to devote a portion of my studio into creating an art gallery, catering to local artists in our area. I also plan on offering art workshops as well as community projects while respecting social distancing, mask requirements, and health concerns with our community. COVID has definitely made everything tricky, including this process for sure. I've been trying since February, but I assure you I would act responsibly and respectfully in my practices. Thank you for giving me a chance to come here and speak on behalf of my passion and what I've spent the last 20 years of my life doing. I would be honored to have an opportunity to give back to Kerrville through artistic expression and through positive interaction. This is basically the first step in acquiring a license to conduct business and getting regular health inspections. I am needing a zoning code compliance verification letter in order to complete my tattoo licensing application. I have been told that I need a conditional use permit in order to acquire this zoning compliance verification letter. So this is why I come before you today. I plan on keeping it extremely private at this time, no more than 5 clients per day. I am the only employee. I would be the only employee. My hours would be probably between 10 a.m. and 7 p.m., no later. I would wear proper PPE as well as what is currently required by my job description. I'm a member of the Association of Professional Tattooers, which we have already deemed industry standard nitrile gloves as well as mask requirements and eye face covers. I am certified in CPR, aseptic technique, as well as bloodborne pathogens training. I've been tattooing professionally for over 18 years. I am willing to require temperature checks upon arrival if necessary, and whatever you require for me to conduct business there. I have been in the building since February, and it's been a little bit of a struggle because I can't do anything there. With COVID, it kind of shut everything down, as you guys all know. I've maintained through basically inheritance from my father's death, as well as teaching private art classes and just doing small family things there. But I'm willing to make it work, whatever I need to do. But yeah, thank you guys for your time.
Yeah, thank you. Commissioners, any questions for the applicant before we go to the public hearing? Okay, we can ask
Go ahead.
questions later.
Yeah, we will. I will. Go ahead.
Okay, we might have some questions for you later.
Absolutely, thank you.
Again, this is 215 Water Street, and we mailed 12 letters out to adjacent property owners on November 19th, as well as advertised in the Kerrville Daily Times. Property is currently zoned Downtown Arts and Culture District. Across the street, across Water Street is C3. And then to the south, west, and east is also Downtown Arts and Culture. It is part of the downtown, which allows retail, commercial, condominiums, apartments, offices, hotels, entertainment centers, service, and office uses. This is not a zone change request, so it is consistent with the Kerrville 2050 plan. It's on a current collector, so there's no issue with the thoroughfare plan or impact on traffic. All parking requirements will be met as per the zoning code, and the applicant is requesting the conditional use permit as per the Downtown Arts and Culture District. Staff recommends the case for your approval with the conditions you see in your backup, that of course, they must be licensed through the Texas Department of Health and Services. They won't give them the license until this process is complete, so that'll be a condition of compliance. And then any state inspections as required for their license, they'll have to go through. But the city of Kerrville does not currently have any local license for tattoo shops, so it defers all to the state health department. With that, I'd be pleased to answer any questions before or after the public hearing.
Any questions? Okay. 4:37, we will open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak, please step forward. State your name and address for the record. Do we have any callers?
Mr. Belanger?
No callers.
Okay, no callers.
Okay. Then at 4:37, we will close the public hearing. Commissioners, any questions?
Yeah, Drew, tell us about tattoo establishments in in all zones. How does that work? Are they allowed in some zones, conditional use in others?
Off the top of my head, I believe they're allowed in C3, and then downtown and C2, they're conditional use permit.
Downtown and C2 are conditional. Okay. This one is right across the street from a C3.
From C3, correct. Yeah, go back to the zoning map. And so downtown, the list of uses for downtown is kind of a mix between C2 and C3. So some of the larger uses, such as car lots, like across the street, are not included in downtown. And then just a handful of different service industries were pulled out of downtown or conditional use, consistent with the previous code.
Like a reasonable spot.
Mm-hmm.
Can you kind of take me through the process a little bit, or maybe I could ask the owner of this? You are a licensed tattoo.
In the state of Texas, the artist individually does not have to be licensed. It has to work under a licensed studio.
But someone has to take the responsibility as having.
That would be me, yes, sir.
Okay, all right. And so if you have any employees.
They would be working under me, and yes, sir.
And not necessarily be licensed tattoo artists?
They don't have to be licensed individually. It would be at a standard that I would require personally.
And then you having that license and being whatever, then she has to go through this process to get, before she can be licensed as a studio.
Yes, that's correct.
So that's what we're talking about now, to okay this as, all right.
Yeah, the Texas Department of Health Services, as part of the application process, requires a letter from the municipality that says they're in a properly zoned district for a tattoo shop.
Okay. All right, the next question. Do you have any plans, any collateral activities that, I've never run a tattoo shop. So.
I think I know what you're referring to, and no. I would like to keep it as private as possible and keep it kind of just very quaint and kind of just blend into the community. I don't look to make waves or have extravagant events or anything like that. Or,
Would you be
honestly,
offering any other services or anything like that?
no, sir.
Is that, that's a separate licensing process?
No, sir.
Taking the gloves off, massage or anything
No,
like
no,
that?
no, no, no. It would be just for tattooing and the portion, I think even the portion of the building that I'm even looking at is about 50%, and then the other half, I would hopefully be turning into an art gallery.
Oh, you'd mentioned that, yeah.
But it would be separate, like kind of, you wouldn't have access to the tattoo part from the gallery part.
Can this be sold, like say she sells her business, is that, it stays with the property, right?
Yes, the conditional use stays with the property.
Because I'm renting the property, it's not my building.
Yeah, if the use ceases for longer than 12 months, we could basically void the conditional use permit. So if the next tenant were to move in and not be a tattoo shop, eventually time would lapse and it would go away.
Or if I chose to move, I'd have to start the process over again for that address.
Correct.
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Zuber. It seems like,
I have a question.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a client that had an allergic reaction to your treatment?
No, sir, I personally have not.
Do you know of any that have? Is it common?
As other tools of the trade, not all implements are created equally. There are, I believe, some, say, pigment brands that are of lesser quality that may possibly cause a reaction, but I would never use anything like that. I use top shelf materials on everything that I do.
You had a client that reacted. How would you treat it?
Everything, I believe, in the health department code, everything that looks like an infection is to be reported to a doctor, and then it must be reported to the health department, and then they follow up with an inspection, I do believe. And then I would personally tell them, I do have a written form of aftercare that is approved by the Texas State Health Department that I would give each client. And then from there, they take care of it. If they have any issues, they contact me. I've been doing it for about 20 years. I can usually resolve any issues that they do have with it, but if it's something that requires medical attention, I definitely would recommend it to them.
How often are you visited by the licensing authority?
I believe they come twice a year.
Do you have liability insurance?
I have not gotten it yet because I've been in the building since February. I've been waiting on the process to even get open. So I was waiting until I got a little closer to opening before I got it. But yes, I do plan on getting it.
And you're renting the building?
Yes, sir.
I feel this location is suitable as any other in the zone, and like many businesses, you have good businesses and then you have not so good businesses that give those others a bad rap, and but I feel the applicant's interest in keeping it small is encouraging to me. I don't see why there's any reason that we should deny this application. Any other thoughts? I have a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the CUP as presented.
All right. We have a motion to approve. I have a second.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 6-1. All right, next item. Item 3B is a zoning change to R2. Drew?
Ordinance for annexation and zone change to R2 on approximately 33.81 acres of the Samuel Wallace Survey number 113 Abstract 347, Kerr County, Texas. More commonly located at the 3200 block of Loop 534, excuse me. There's 7 letters mailed out on November 19th to the adjacent property owners, and of course advertised in the Kerrville Daily Times. City of Kerrville owns this property. It is approximately 33 acres along Olympic Drive and Loop 534. Backs up to Singing Wind Park to the southwest. Middle school, the new middle school is just to the north. The high school across the loop to the east. The zoning around it is R1 and PI for the school, the park, and the high school, the middle school, and the park, and the adjacent neighborhood is zoned R1. And this is part of the strategic catalyst area number 8, and it is consistent with the Kerrville 2050 comprehensive plan for that catalyst area. The high school, the middle school, and the large amount of vacant property obviously being a catalyst for future development along Loop 534, the extension of Olympic Drive, and with the new school opening in the next year, be a prime opportunity for this neighborhood to take off. Staff recommends the case for your approval based on the comprehensive plan and the zoning policies. I'd be pleased to answer any questions before or after the public hearing.
Any questions for Drew before the public hearing? Okay. At 4:46, open the public hearing. Any wishing to speak, please step forward. Do we have any callers?
Are any of the callers on hold wishing to speak on this item? Seeing none, there are no callers.
All right, thank you. All right, 4:47, close the public hearing. Drew, does this property go all the way to the right-of-way of Loop 534?
Yes, it does.
It seems like there's a strip there right along Loop 534 that has a different zone to it. Is that right?
That's right. The portion that's inside the city limits is zoned ag.
Okay.
It's kind of a placeholder for any future development. You can see a little bit on this map. Some of the areas along the loop that were undeveloped are part of larger parcels that are primarily in the county. So those were zoned ag. That dark green is a placeholder.
So when this changes to R2, it will extend
Yes, it'll
all
be
the way to
entire
Loop
property.
534?
That's correct.
Do we know if there is going to be any access onto Loop 534?
At this time, we do not. So any access would be subject to text dot approval and their requirements. The middle school has 1 access point on the far north end of their campus.
Right.
The high school, of course, has 3 access points, one being the intersection with Olympic Drive, so there's a signaled intersection there.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have 2 other access points further to the south.
Okay.
Tell us more about the plans for the property and why R2 has been selected as the zone of choice.
The city does have an agreement with a builder, a developer and a builder, to develop this neighborhood. Part of their single-family product meets the R2 standards, primarily looking at that 4,500 square foot lot with a 45-foot width that fits their traditional product that they provide for single-family homes. So at this time, there are no plans for any duplexes or duplexes or townhomes. Will be single-family is at least the plan. The zoning, of course, would allow the different housing types, but
Thank you. What's the kind of gray area that kind of flows into that piece of property? Floodplain?
floodplain.
Okay.
That portion of the floodplain is unstudied, so that's based on an older series of maps. So they will have to do a flood study as part of their development to see if that's more or less of an impact than currently drawn.
You know, I know that that housing type is much needed in Kerrville. My biggest concern is just adding additional traffic onto Loop 534 with the high school and the new middle school. It's going to be tricky, but you know, TxDOT is pretty picky about their access points, so I guess that will be covered.
As you said, the TxDOT will control the access points. Loop 534 was built as a major thoroughfare, major principal arterial. They do have room to expand if needed with the TxDOT right-of-way that they have to anticipate any future traffic impacts for the rest of the development. Because as you can see, there's quite a bit of land undeveloped along 534, which is the catalyst portion of that strategic catalyst area in the comp plan.
All right. So do we need separate motions, or is the annexation and the zoning all in one?
One ordinance,
Okay.
so one motion.
Commissioners, any other thoughts or concerns, questions?
Was the middle school was the same process, wasn't it? Wasn't it annexed?
Yes.
in? Yeah.
A portion of that property was in the city limits, but the final footprint was not. So they did do a small, I guess, kind of a perimeter annexation to expand that footprint.
All right, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the ordinance as presented.
We have a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. All right, next item, item 3C is a conditional use permit for a short-term rental.
The resolution for a conditional use permit for short-term rental on Hillcrest subdivision, Block 3, Lot 1 and 2, City of Kerrville, Texas, more commonly known as 900 Tivy Street. And with that, I will turn it over to the applicant.
Thank you, Director Paxton and Commissioners. My name is Jennifer Wise, and my husband and I own and operate Southern Charm Vacation Rentals, LLC here in Kerrville. We've provided full-service, short-term property management for vacation rentals within the city of Kerrville and Fredericksburg, both since 2015. I'm a native Kerrville resident, born and raised, and I appreciate your consideration of the application for the conditional use permit for my client's property at 900 Tivy Street. Along with the required application, I've also submitted some additional items for your review, supporting why we believe the property would not only make a very successful luxury vacation rental, but also be a beautiful addition to the neighborhood without having any negative impact for surrounding property owners. As a licensed realtor, I also believe this to increase the desirability of the neighborhood through improving the condition of the property and possibly adding value to neighboring residences as well. Besides the addition of this property into the short-term rental market, our larger goal has been to contribute to the overall growth of this community by addressing the demand for more familiar, comfortable alternatives to traditional hotels and motels, especially during this pandemic when social distancing precautions are a priority by our visiting tourists. We've taken great care to listen to the feedback of our guests as to what they're looking for in a short-term rental, what they would like to see in future properties, as well as how their experiences in our short-term rentals have had a positive impact on their view of Kerrville, its culture, and its amenities. So I look forward to answering any questions you may have regarding the operating of this short-term rental as it pertains to the conditions of the use permit. Excuse me, and also I'd like to answer any questions of the neighboring homeowners if they have any concerns about perceived impact of the property to their home. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. So we'll go into a public hearing, Drew? You want to present,
my
please?
full report first. Property is zoned R1A, as is the neighborhood around it. With part of this comprehensive land use plan is neighborhood residential, which obviously is intended to be a residential area. Should be no impact on traffic. The off-street parking should be mitigated through any traffic conditions by providing adequate parking. Here's a site plan showing the plan for parking and future additions of a pool and deck area, but the parking would meet the requirements for the short-term rental standards. As the commission is aware, but I'll go ahead and read the full definition for the public. Short-term rental unit is a facility used for short-term lodging for compensation, architecturally designed to look like a single-family dwelling, occupied concurrently as the residence for the owner or manager of the property, or separate lodging units. Similar residential scale with a maximum of 6 bedrooms total on the property. And any management, lodging, or living on this property would be included in those 6 bedrooms. The applicant has identified the following amenities as close driving proximity, less than 2 miles, from the proposed short-term rental unit: Golden Antler Boutique, the Arcadia Theater, Grape Juice Restaurant, Kerr Arts and Culture Center, Kyler Theater, Scott Schreiner Municipal Golf Course, Francisco's Restaurant Nobility, Basement Brewers of Texas, Rails Cafe, Pint and Plow Brewing Company, Kerrville Farmers Market, Louise Hayes Park, Broken Stone Pizza, and of course, downtown parking garage. So it is within 2 minutes of downtown. Subject property has been vacant for close to a year prior to the purchase. And because the conditional use permit is consistent with the Kerrville 2050 plan, the staff recommends approval based on the comprehensive plan and the conditions as proposed. The planning department has received several phone calls, both in support of the case, and I do have 2 letters to read in addition to the public hearing. I'll go ahead and read those now. I am not able to attend the meeting due to COVID virus, but I request that you read my email at the meeting. I currently help my mom with her vacation rental. The property is always well maintained. The house is always clean and taken care of. We've never had any problems with guests. Our rental agreement and that the guests have to sign gives us the authority to have them leave if there is any unauthorized activity. I've lived in nice neighborhoods with rental properties, and the tenant never maintains the property, and they can also have loud parties whenever they want. I am in favor of the 900 Tivy Street being a vacation rental because it will always be maintained and the owner has control over the property. I currently live on Murda, and I believe this would add value to the neighborhood. This is from Cheryl Ilevsky. Apologize if I got that name wrong. I will not be attending the meeting today due to the COVID virus, but I ask that you read my email aloud. Thank you. I currently own a vacation rental here in Kerrville. I am in favor of the rental at 900 Tivy and explain my reasons why. My property will always be well maintained. I do a background check on every guest before I agree to accept them. My guests have been in professional fields. I've never had a bad experience with them and never had anything destroyed. I also know the number of guests, their names, addresses, phone numbers before they stay. I have my own rental agreement that the guests have to sign and agree to before they're allowed to stay. This agreement gives me the right to have them leave if there is a problem for unauthorized parties, loud noises, etc. I've also had monthly rental properties in the past. Let's say you have a rental agreement for 6 months to a year. My experience with rental property, the tenant can have whoever over and as many people as they want, parties, junk up the yard, and never maintain it. I find the eviction process can take a while to complete, whereas the vacation rental, you have more control over the property. I believe having this vacation rental will only increase the value of the neighborhood, and my residence is 944 Murda, and I've lived there since 2005. Marlon Snyder. And with that, be pleased to answer any questions before or after the public hearing. As soon as I open the public hearing.
It is 4:59. We'll open the public hearing. Anybody wish to speak?
One sign up before the meeting started. That's Mr. Stephen Foley.
All right.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. Yeah, I live at 953 Murda, which is within 200 foot of this proposed short-term rentals. I'm concerned about a number of things. I and I don't know if this is the department, your department's issue or not, but there's a lot of traffic on Murder Street. And the traffic is, there's no signage for speed limits, there's no stop signs, there's no speed bumps. And people are currently, they fly back and forth between Tivy Street and Sidney Baker. The streets are also narrow. There's a lot of parking on the street. And I don't know where the parking is going to be for this particular proposal. It faces Tivy Street, which I don't know that there's much parking available on Tivy Street. The street that's behind this proposal is Oak Street, which is very narrow, already has parking issues. I know that because I walk my dog down that street, and it's always a line of cars parked to where only one car can ever go by on Oak Street where the parking is, which would leave the other part of the parking would have to be on Murder Street. Now, Murder Street has its own issues because I have people continually parking in front of my property now because there's not adequate parking on their own properties and residences. So I'm concerned about the parking issues and the traffic as much as anything. I think, I don't know how it's zoned necessarily. That area is an old established neighborhood. I'm not sure necessarily how I can see where the property values are going to go up as a result of short-term rentals, which is basically, my understanding would this be like an Airbnb. And granted, the properties would probably be more maintained than a traditional rental, but there's going to be a lot much more traffic flow and increased noise as a result of people on vacation have a tendency to come and go, as opposed to people in the neighborhood that are either retired and they stay at home, or they're working regular hours and they have regular commute times. So if we got 3 units, and I don't know, you said 6 beds, I don't know how many people are going to accommodate. I think there's 3 buildings that are up for proposal to be included as the short-term rentals. I don't know. But if you can get, I mean, if there's 6 beds, you got 12, 15 people. There could be a number of different families that are there, which adds to more issues with the parking and traffic. I just don't know that it's a good idea to zone something there in the midst of the old residential established neighborhood.
Okay, all right. And we'll be addressing some of those parking questions that you have with the applicant. So. And
then I heard swimming pools, and that's going to increase noise, screaming. I mean, I love kids, but I mean, they're going to have these screaming kids, in the middle of the day, jumping in and out of the pool.
Anybody's allowed to put a swimming pool on their property.
I get it. I mean, I get it, but it's also, it's in a single residence, you're not going to have as many people, most likely, as you would with 3 separate units that are being rented out. So that's my basically concern. And I have a number of my neighbors that feel the same way. I know that you got some letters, but I sent something to Steve at the planning department with a number of signatures of people who were all concerned with the same things.
Okay. All right.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak? Please step forward. Do we have anybody on the phone?
There are no callers.
All right.
Mr. Paxton, I just got a message from an Amber Carpenter that said she's been on the Zoom call but doesn't see that the moderator is accepting her to have a voice in.
Okay.
I'm not sure how that would work, but she said she doesn't see an option to chime in.
Hello, caller. Are you calling to speak on this item?
No, I'm not. I'm calling to listen in.
Thank you. Caller, are you calling to speak on this item?
I am.
Perfect. Thank you.
Can I just go ahead?
Please go ahead. Yes. Please state your name and address. Thank you.
Sure. My name is Amber Carpenter, and I own 321 Cottage Street. I am also a realtor in town, and I've got clients under contract actually on another home on Tybee Street. It's a little bit closer to Shriner, if you're wondering about direction, Shriner Golf Course. And really my biggest, I think, proponent of why this should be considered for approval is because I know Jennifer and I know her properties, and I know that that person that just spoke was concerned with how it's going to improve their property values. Jennifer doesn't do anything halfway. The property is going to be gorgeous. It's going to be fully landscaped, very well taken care of on a regular weekly basis. And the concerns about the parking, she has all of that planned out. I don't think it's going to be a concern once he sees her plan. As far as the hotel issue, I have a ton of clients that are calling me, that are coming in from out of town all of the time, and they ask me where I can send them for a hotel room. Like, what do I suggest? Honestly, my high-end clients aren't going to stay in any of our hotels. So I rely on properties that are maintained by properties like Jennifer's, as well. There's plenty others. Think of like Dwell Well, or even like the well-tended properties that the Wilts are doing now. Those are the type of properties that I can send my clients to. One, because I know that the standard of their stay is going to be top quality, as well as they're going to get the experience of what it's like to live in our community. They're going to get to feel like they're a part of something. They're going to see their neighbors. They're going to get to have their coffee on their front porch and just be a part of what it's like to live here. And so that's kind of the biggest reasons why. I know a lot of people think of vacation rentals and they think it's going to be just one giant party. There's going to be loud screaming at the pool. There's going to be, people coming in and out, and that's really not what happens. I get that that's a concern, but that's just not realistic as to what really happens. And so I am all for it, and that's all I've got to say.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Carpenter. Do we have any other persons who want to speak, or anybody else on the call?
There are no additional callers.
All right. At 5:07, we close the public hearing. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Drew or for the applicant?
In my second look at this, my first look at this, I was concerned about parking. I actually owned the house next door for 13 years, and so I was like, "Ooh, where are they going to park these people?" But I see now that you've got plans for additional parking. My concern when I first looked at it was, oh gosh, the entrance is on the front, they're parking in the back, and they're going to end up parking on the street anyway. And I like that, and I think that's a great idea. That's a great improvement of that property, and it could do nothing but improve the values around it because it was very run down initially. Y'all did a great job on that.
So the driveway here off Oak Street is labeled as 4 parking spaces.
That was the one I thought would be really tight for 4 parking spots, just because Oak Street's so narrow. You got a couple of trucks in there, they'd be hanging out in the middle of the road.
And then 2 more spaces coming off of Murda.
That's a great idea.
And the code does require 1 parking space per bedroom, plus an additional parking space since they are using an off-site manager.
And then they are proposing 1 additional in to what's required.
That's correct.
A question on that, is this site plan included as part of the conditional use? I mean, if we approve the conditional use and then they decide to go back 1 less parking space, is that open? Or if they say they're going to have that parking for 2 on Murda Street, is that set?
No, the condition right now is that they meet the minimum parking of the zoning code.
So we would need to be sure we had 2 parking spaces. That would need to be a condition.
An additional another condition tied to this site plan.
Yeah, I spent some time driving around the property, and it does look very nice. But I agree that with 4 spaces off of Oak Street, I could see a lot of vacation renters trying to park on Marta Street just because it might be more convenient. I think having 2 spaces on Marta Street really will eliminate the majority of that. And so I would like to see that, you know, when someone makes a motion, that put into the motion that ends up being a two parking space spot there on Marta Street.
Drew, I want to explore one thing with you on this. Okay, so conditional use permit is tied to the property.
Correct.
So this applicant may do a wonderful job, but then the property sells, that continues to the next owner. What recourse is there any, or is there any recourse if things are not kept up?
Outside of just normal code enforcement, as long as they're operating and keeping the property clean, if there's not any noise complaints, that would go through the police department. Any of those kind of general complaints, no different than any other household. But if it's a property maintenance issue, that would go through code enforcement. If they're not maintaining the house or the property around it, and trash, rubbish, weeds, that sort of thing. And then if that
It's a relatively a permanent thing.
could be.
Yeah. Unless you said if there was a 12-month period where it was not used?
That's correct. Yeah, if there's a lapse in use, then the conditional use permit goes away.
Goes away automatically?
Yes.
Okay.
You know, these short-term rentals are becoming more and more popular, and it's just in their nature, it's hard for us as a commission to be consistent, and that's what we try to do as much as we can. One of the things that we've tried to keep in mind is a proximity to amenities. I think a driving proximity could be convenient for just about anywhere in town. So I don't know that that necessarily applies. We are close to the golf course, within a couple blocks. I think that that is an amenity worth considering. You know, the other thing that we pay attention to is neighbors' comments, and we've heard some for and some against, or at least one against. I think that as much as we can comes into play in our decisions as well. I think that, you know, what has been done thus far and what is proposed seems like good decisions. And my only thought would be is to maintain that additional parking space as part of a condition.
Seems like the ones that are in the R1 zones that we've seen haven't fit as well. Maybe in the R1A, it seems to fit a little better.
I think some of the, at least geographically, particularly looking at some of the amenities, that would be the case. I think so.
And just as far as the neighborhood goes, along Tivy, I'm not sure if it's right across the street or just a few houses down. There are some apartments that are, you know, maybe a 6-unit apartment that has multiple tenants. I think that would easily be justifiable as the same setup, and so I don't think we're necessarily going outside of what the neighborhood is being established.
Well, and that was a multi-unit rental property prior to. The house was rented, and then the little house behind it was rented, and I believe the garage apartment was rented at some point too. So there were tenants.
Right.
I do have a comment. So as far as it being 3 units, I know when the property was listed for sale, that garage apartment upstairs was listed as such. When discussing it with the owner, who's also the listing broker for the property, it was actually a bedroom to that main unit that had a stairwell up to it. So all it was a bedroom and a bath, a full bath, that they closed off by just boarding up nicely, walling up the doorway and having a secondary access from the garage. Well, when I spoke to him, I said, whoa, you gotta verbalized that, I said it's really guest quarters. Since the purchase of the property, my client has opened back up that hallway, and so the third unit is actually the fourth bedroom to the main home. So the property is just the 4-bedroom unit in the front, and then a detached 2-bedroom, 1 bath that has a long-term tenant in it right now. So those are the only 2 properties.
So that, is that detached 2-bedroom part of the bedroom count?
No, the 4-bedroom is just the main home.
Mm-hmm.
The detached is an additional 2-1 right now. He'd like to keep that long-term tenant in it, but would like the conditional use permit to blanket both properties, because his goal is in the future, 1, 2, 3 years down the road, improve that property, does not have improvements like the main home, to add that to the total overall availability of the short-term rental. But for right now, just have a long-term tenant in it.
So that means that we have 4 bedrooms in the main house and 2 bedrooms in the detached?
Correct.
So actually will be required 1 more parking space.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we would need a total.
And there is an additional parking space not noted in that site plan for the detached now.
Okay.
Right.
So
So we would need 1 additional than what is being proposed.
I'll work with Ms. Wise to get that updated before it goes to council.
Okay.
That way the site plan shows that it's clear.
The owner couldn't be here today, but he's open to any of your thoughts as far as the site plan. We just did the site plan based off of the pool and concrete companies that came to advise on the design. But if we need to add spacing or modify placement to, make the planning and zoning board more comfortable, he's open to it.
So technically, there's 5 parking spots right now. Because the detached has its own parking spot, 1 spot, and then there's 4, and then if you add 2 more, you're at 7, right? And that's the requirement. Okay.
That's correct.
So when you're talking about adding spaces on MRDA, are you talking about running parallel with MRDA down along the side of the
No.
property?
If you look on the monitors, there's an area noted for proposed driveway 26 feet by 24 feet. And so that would be head-in parking, like your traditional driveway that pulls in. And so vehicles, will not be on the street for those parking. Yeah, for that parking.
It's a requirement for our properties anyway. We do not allow guests to park on the street at any of our properties. We never have.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of just a continuation of what we've done always.
And to clarify for the public, when we are talking about parking requirements, we're talking about off-street, so on the private property.
Mm-hmm.
The street curbside parking does not count towards these parking requirements.
Wise, how do you?
Yeah, okay, I just want to make sure. I have another question. If I am concerned with the speed of the traffic up and down, would that be something I deal with the city council? Was that planning?
I can actually talk with engineering and public works about that.
Yeah, because that's, there's a lot of, it's a straight shot.
Right.
Nobody knows it.
Okay.
It just flies through there.
All right.
I've got a question for Ms. Wise. How do you control if your clients park on the street? How do you monitor and control that?
So prior to the booking taking place for a property, we have a guest book for each property specifically done for that property. That's been done through trial and error, through attorney drafting over the years. We've created that guest agreement that they must sign. In that, it stipulates how many vehicles they can have. They register those vehicles with us and the guest count prior to arriving to the property. When the day of arrival, we go to the property and we do what we call an open up, and that's for every property, every booking. We check the property, turn the lights on, get the air down, get music going, just make sure there's no issues that could have happened between a cleaning earlier in that week and their arrival. And then at that time, they text us when they get to the property, and we live in town, and the properties are all within minutes driving range, and we usually do a little drive-through to check the property. We also like to maintain relationships with the neighboring homes and giving them ours or the owner's contact information, whichever our owner prefers, so that they can contact us if they've ever had an issue. We've yet to have a neighbor in, 6 years now, call us because of a disruption at a property, and we feel that's because of the, ahead of time information that we're giving to the guests, what we expect of them. And because the properties have a higher price per night than the majority of short-term rentals in the area, we feel that sort of elevates the demographic and caliber of the guests, and they know what's expected of them. So we really try to operate it as what would I want if I was a neighbor? What would I want as a homeowner, somebody living next door? And that's what we expect from the guests.
How many properties do you have in your portfolio?
We have 6 now. We've tried to slowly add to the portfolio. Now, we get calls all the time to look at properties. The majority of properties we look at and tour, we do not feel make a good match for it. So the criteria of what the city has determined to be a good short-term rental and close proximity to amenities and all that, we've really found the recipe to a successful rental to be XYZ. And if the property doesn't match that, we usually don't recommend it. So very few, 9 times out of 10, we don't recommend that owner use that property. So it's a very stringent process. This property would be a wonderful property. It's got all the elements. There's a lot of elbow room. It's got space in the house. It's got room for the improvements outside. And it just feels like a property that would work well. And it's a recipe that's been tested over the years. So.
Right.
Question, Chairman. If I understood Ms. Wise's comment, there's a piece of property there that will be improved later. Should that be part of the CUP now, or would that be appropriate for another?
It will be part of it now, because it's not on a separate piece of property. It's all on the same
So it's
lot.
gotta follow the same,
So
okay.
yeah, so the parking requirement will have to cover that
Okay.
as well. All right. Okay. This to me seems like a good use based on what we've seen and discussed. Any other questions or thoughts, commissioners? I hear a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the CUP for short-term rental with the addition of 2 additional parking spots.
All right. We have a motion to approve.
I'll second.
And a motion to second the motion. All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. Next item on the agenda is item 3D, resolution for conditional use permit at our new HEB property.
This is a resolution to amend an existing conditional use permit. Commission heard this in 2019 to amend the site plan for the fuel station and car wash. So get to the site plan real quick. Do this a little backwards. So there's the new store. Get my mouse going. Here's the new store. The original CUP had the gas station here and the car wash closer to Jefferson Street. HEB is currently working to acquire this property here. So the only portion of the site of the fuel station remaining on this piece of property is highlighted there in blue. Here's a zoomed in on the site plan for the gas station itself. That's actually only the underground fuel tanks. And then a portion of the canopy will be overhanging into that downtown arts and culture district. So C2 allows for the car wash and the gas station by right, does not require a conditional use permit. But since a portion of that site plan is still within the downtown arts and culture district, we're amending the previous site plan, which actually is limiting the amount of the use that would be on the property. It is part of the downtown strategic catalyst area in the future land use plan and is consistent with Kerrville 2050. Again, the property is currently zoned downtown arts and culture district. That adjacent property is zoned C2. Staff recommends the case for your approval. I'd be pleased to answer any questions before or after the public hearing.
All right. Any questions before we go to public hearing? 5:24, open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak, please step forward, state your name and address. Okay.
I'm here, why not? Good evening, I'm Kathy Strimple with HEB. Drew did a great job explaining what we're here asking for this evening. I just wanted to let you know that I am here available to answer any questions that you may have.
All right. Thank you. Do we have any callers?
There are no callers.
Okay, at 5:25, we close the public hearing.
Whoa. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Don't anybody to speak?
Yeah. We didn't have any callers.
Is there anyone else wanted to speak? Okay.
So the original design, that property was not owned by HEB, and now they're gonna own it, and this is just gonna improve their layout in the parking lot? Is that the basic?
Yes.
Okay.
So they, starting the design, and Ms. Strimple, correct me if I get any of this out of order. As they were starting the design, my mouse back here, they only owned up to this property line here. They acquired, of course, the barber shop for the expansion of the parking lot. Already owned this piece back here, which is currently parking. To get the new fuel station and the car wash, they pushed it to this end of the property to maintain as much parking as possible. Now with the acquisition of adjacent properties, looking to expand that, gain more parking spaces for the customers, and move that fuel site out of the downtown arts and culture district almost all the way. But again, it does overlap a little bit. So rather than let the conditional use permit expire, we came in to amend the site plan just to show that there is some overlap, albeit minimal overlap.
Did it affect like the number of fuel stations and the parking spaces?
The number of fuel pumps is the same, and we've been able to increase the parking available to the store because we've acquired more land.
Okay. That's a plus.
Drew, is there a reason why this property isn't replatted as a part of one of the other lots?
So they've been working with engineer on this, Chance Kutek, as they're working through what the final plat's going to look like. This property, this is currently one lot now, where the CUP was.
Mm-hmm.
My mouse to go again. There will eventually be a replat. What that final configuration looks like, I haven't seen yet because we're still going through, or HEB is still going through acquisition, and of course this part of the process as well.
Okay.
But because there is some overlap of construction, it will have to be replatted because they are crossing current lot lines.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of what my concern was.
Yeah. That's part of the timeline to get that in there.
Am I seeing a new entrance exit onto Lima Street where that alley was?
Yes, so the alley, it does come in between those two properties. They are working with Public Works to expand, to widen that. Still working through that final design.
That would actually be an improvement, the flow of traffic on that corner.
That's, who knows which way. Can you bring up the other plat, please?
Yes.
Okay, where's the store?
To your right.
The store would be on this end
No,
of the
no, no.
property.
Where do you pay for the gas lane if you can't do it at the pump?
Small
Kiosks?
kiosk
Okay.
here.
Okay. And it's not blue here, but those are the fuel tanks?
Yes.
To the right? Yes.
Yeah. Fuel tanks are here. And then from about there to there is the fuel canopy, which does overhang. That last row of pumps is right on that lot line.
I'm sure there's some requirement between where the fuel pumps are and the tanks are, right?
There is, yes.
And that's been a,
Close proximity.
and probably a rhetorical question, but the tanks from the original service station were pulled up and disposed.
They've already been removed, and this will be a new tank. The one that was out there previously is much older.
Sure.
And so when we put this one in, it'll be a 2020 tank with a lot more of there's different protections in place to protect the environment and groundwater. Reusing the old tank wouldn't have been a good idea. So this will be a new it'll be a 2021 tank, I guess. We're going to keep it in 2020. This will be a 2021 tank.
Without the COVID on it.
Without the COVID.
Yeah, okay.
All right, commissioners, any other thoughts or concerns? We have a motion.
I'll make a motion that we accept the conditional use permit amendment as presented.
We have a motion to approve.
Second.
And we have a second. All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. With that, we move to staff report.
The only thing I have for staff report is thank Mr. Harmon and Mr. Zuber for their service. This is their last meeting as they term out for this go-around. We'll have, council's got appointments to consider next week. Assuming there's an appointment from council, those new members will come on in January and we'll have election of chair in January. So thank you guys for your service.
All right.
It's been good.
Well, and I want to thank city staff for all the work that they do and making these meetings happen and all the involvement that it takes to put each one of these together. I've had a good run. I've enjoyed it. I've learned a lot, and hopefully the new commission will keep up the good work. And so I've enjoyed it. Thank y'all. Commissioners, it's been a pleasure.
Indeed.
Appreciate it.
Come back in a year.
You never know.
So
All right.
Where's the cake? Drew?
Yeah. All right, 5:31, meeting adjourned. We out.